Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to report the social philosophy, the main and important branches of philosophy. Social philosophy, as a science of society, reflects upon the basic nature of human relationship in society. Next, introduction. Philosophy is the study of general and fundamental problems concerning matters such as the nature of knowledge, truth, justice, beauty, mind, and language. Philosophy is the root of all knowledge and it is considered as a mother of all sciences. The word philosophy is of ancient Greek origin meaning love of knowledge or love of wisdom. So philosophy discusses and critically evaluates the general concepts such as knowledge, truth, and etc. And it is the thoughtful consideration of human society and it gives an the insight into the actual activities of human beings in the society. Next, philosophy of education related to society. First, philosophy is empiricism. The view that all concepts originate in experience, that all concepts are about or applicable to things that can be experienced or that all rationally acceptable beliefs or proposition are justifiable or knowable only through experience. So empiricism is concept siya nga originate from experience lang. And this broad definition accords with the derivation of the term empiricism from the ancient Greek word imperia or experience. Next, concept con- concepts are said to be a posteriori in Latin from the latter if they can be applied only on the basis of experience. And they are called a priori from the former if they can be applied if they can be applied independently of experience. So beliefs or proposition are said to be a posteriori if they are knowable only on the basis of experience and a priori if they are knowable independently of experience. And according to the second and third definition of empiricism above, it is the view that all concepts or all rationally acceptable beliefs or propositions are posteriori rather than priori. Next. Next philosophy is utilitarianism. So utilitarianism in normative ethics, a tradition stemming from the late 18th and 19th century, English philosophers and economists Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, according to which an action or type of action is right if it tends to promote happiness or pleasure and wrong if it tends to produce unhappiness or pain, not just for the performer of the action but also for everyone else affected by it. So it is the general doctrine in ethics that action or types of action should be evaluated on the basis of their consequences. Utilitarianism and other consequentialist theories are in opposition to egoism, the view that each person should pursue his or her own self-interest, even at the expense of others, and to any ethical theory that regards some action or types of action as right or wrong independently of their consequences. And in the notion of consequences, the utilitarian includes all of the good and bad produced by the action, whether it is arising after the action has been performed or during its performance, if the difference in the consequences of alternative action is not great, some utilitarians would not regard the choice between them as a as a moral issues. So according to Mill, act should be classified as morally right or wrong only if the consequences are of such significance that a person would wish to see the agent compelled, not merely persuaded and exhorted to act in the preferred manner. And, and utilitarians also assume that it is possible to compare the intrinsic values produced by two alternative action and to estimate which would have better consequences. Bentham believed that a hedonic calculus is theoretically possible. So, a moralist, he maintained and could sum up the units of pleasure and the units of pain for everyone likely to be affected immediately and in the future, and could take the balance as a measure of the overall good or evil tendency of an action. And such precise measurement as Bentham envisioned is perhaps not essential, but it is nonetheless necessary for the utilitarian to make some interpersonal comparison of the values of the effects of alternative courses of action. That's all. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I am Gorniz. So for today's session, I will be covering my topic about pragmatism. So what is pragmatism? The term pragmatism is origin from the word pragma, meaning activity or practice, action. As action is priority over thought. Pragmatism is an educational philosophy that says dedication should be about life and is teaching students things that are practical for life and encourage them to grow into better people. So next, explain which believes in practicability or utility depending upon the truth, reality, goodness, or badness, which truth fact of yesterday need to be experienced fully today and tomorrow. In education, pragmatism is an approach to learning and teaching that focuses on keeping things practical. Its key theorist is John Dewey. More Dewey and picture. So, one of the example sa pragmatism in teaching is the practical learning. So, the idea of practical learning is that education should apply to the real world. Example, if somebody teaches students who live in an urban area, there might not be much practical application for them to learn about science or the teaching at a school for children of farmers. There may be little need for teach art history. But for the children of farmers, agricultural science is very practical. And for students who will be running museum, art history is important. So the point is, Sally will need to know her students and their lives and focus on what is most important. So, as a teacher, iyaning iyahang kinanglan nga may bala ng kaning kung unsang sitwasyon sa iyang mga student kung asa siya nandiyan sa community. Para ma-prepare siya mga lesson or kaning mga project pahimo kanang mga most important lang para sa sila ma-relate kung asa sila nag. So next, there are four principles of pragmatism in education. So our first principle is principle of utility. Everything that students learn have utility. This means that everything should be useful to the student. Student doesn't learn for theoretical ideas they will never apply their outside of school. Instead, a student to learn things that are relevant to them by making things relevant and students will be more engaged and eager to learn. So our second principle is principle of interest. So according to John Dewey, a key pragmatist theorist, that students have more interest. First is condition, second analysis and investigation. Third is instruction, expression. Therefore, teachers should lessons that involve talking with one another, investigating, experimentation, making, and being creative. So our third principle is principle of experience. Students can learn things, first value experience over all else. Students can learn abstract things all day, but unless they experience those things, they may never truly learn. Teachers should therefore create a lot of projects, experimental and experiential lessons that help students learn by doing. So our last principle is principle of integration. Curriculum contains not separate. So an example for this is mathematics, science, and creative are not the three different lessons. And the pragmatic links the curriculum content together. So the teacher will show students how concepts from different sides are related to each other and encourage a holistic understanding of the topic they are learning. Pragmatism. So, muna itong tinanglan nga man sa pragmatism. The origins of the term pragmatism are the great differences, practice, and action. Key pragmatist theories include John Dewey and Terry S. And pragmatism is about doing practical things that get results. Pragmatism in education involves practical lessons that have to the lives of learners. A pragmatic classroom involves project-based learning, learning, experimentation, and experiential learning. You only learn things that are part of your life. You might be a pragmatist. So there you trust it that can change. So some people believe that the facts never change. The truth is the truth. They say, however, pragmatists believe that the truth can change. What is true fact is whatever works and gets result at any point in time. So pragmatists are always willing to change their mind, and when new information or circumstances come up. So the thing they care most about is taking action and achieving result. So gakuan siya no take sila action and ga-achieve siya ng result. And the second is what is are utilitarian. Someone who values things that are useful. If knowledge is not useful in real, then it isn't really interesting to a pragmatic person. So pragmatic teachers are more interested in showing students things that will have value in relevance to their lives. Example is in education, pragmatists want us students to find the true answer. There won't be a true answer at the outset that they need to arrive at. Instead, the teacher will ask students to experiment and come back with an explanation of whatever worked in their experiment. It's up to the is most full set of facts that got them the results they needed. And money ang refer sa comfort and go into person.
Critical pedagogy. What is critical pedagogy? According to the academia, critical pedagogy is a philosophy of education that has developed and applied concepts from critical theory. It views teaching as an inherently political act, rejects the neutrality of knowledge, and insists that issues of social justice and democracy itself are not distinct from acts of teaching and learning. So critical pedagogy is a philosophy of education that views teaching as a political act. This of course includes challenging students to examine the power structures and status quo of their surroundings. Should or how should critical pedagogy be used in a classroom? Dr. Henry Giroux claimed in his book entitled Pedagogy and the Politics of Hope that by creating appropriate conditions, teachers enable students to become cultural producers who can rewrite their experiences and perceptions. By letting students be their own decision maker, it can help them better understand the world. Paulo Freire has a similar point of view towards critical pedagogy. He said that classroom experiences, with the help of the teachers, should become situations in which students are encouraged to act as active agents in their own education and to develop a critical consciousness that helps them evaluate the validity, fairness, and authority within their educational and living situations. It is always good to form a decent learning and thinking habit, and the younger children can have that mindset, the better they can make the good and rational decisions for themselves. Critical pedagogy in the classroom. So, critical pedagogy is inevitably based on the world experience of the students and concurs with student interests and questions. It relies on students learning best when allowed to explore and answer for themselves. The best teacher allows students to follow any subject that captivates and inspires them. Indeed, inspiring this passion has to be a truly welcome reward for any teacher. Curricula and teacher timetables need to allow for these flights of fancy if learning is to be an enjoyable activity for the student and self-learning embedded. Examples of critical pedagogy and practices in teaching and learning. And examples of critical pedagogy practices in teaching and learning include re-examining and reconstructing the whole curriculum of the classroom. So one of the example for this is the from teacher-centered learning to learner-centered mode of teaching. The role of the student should be changed from a role of being the object in the classroom to being an active and critical subject, become an active participants in the classroom or having the students and teachers interaction. Students should undergo a struggle in which they struggle for ownership of themselves. Teachers should provide opportunity to this or the students must discover their learnings. Processes in the classroom should be set up which enables learners to strive for something different for themselves. It is opportunity for them to know their strengths and capabilities and to decide for themselves during the learning process. The teacher should be very involved in this processes of critical pedagogy in the classroom to ensure success. The teacher is the one who guide them along the way. Teachers need to help students separate themselves from an unconditional acceptance of the conditions of their existence. The teacher should always ensure that the teachers always ensure that good and comfortable study environment for the children. So that would be all, and I thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabuat, and I am here to discuss the deconstructionism by Theodore Bugard, Kurt Brummel. Next na. Theodore Bugard Kurt Brummel, in 1904 to 1987, was a leading educational philosopher of the 20th century. As an American educator and educational philosopher, Brummel was best known as the founder of social reconstruction. So what is social reconstruction? Social reconstructionism is a philosophy that emphasizes the addressing of social questions and a quest to create a better society and worldwide democracy. Reconstructionist educators focus on a curriculum that highlights social reform as the aim of education. Sumura na ni siya og katong atong ginaingon nga ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan. Kay kita naa sa atoa ang opportunity nga magbago ang ato ang society once we get older, and if ang isa ka tawo is na I will nga mahatagan og tiyada nga kaugmaon ang mga sumunuray nga kabataan. In reaction to the realities of World War II, he recognizes the potential for either human annihilation through technology and human cruelty or the capacity to create a beneficent society using technology and human compassion. Philosophical perspectives. Brummel dedicated his efforts to employing schools as agents for social change. Next. Brummel's works include Ends and Means in Education in 1950, Patterns on Educational Philosophy in 1955, Philosophies of Education in Cultural Perspective in 1955, Toward a Reconstructed Philosophy of Education in 1956, Cultural Foundations of Education in 1957, Education and the Emerging Age in 1961, Education as Power in 1965, the use of, the use of explosive ideas in education in 1965, the Climatic Decades in 1970, Patterns of Educational Philosophy in 1971, The Teacher as World Citizen in 1976, and Tourism as Cultural Learning in 1977. The objective of this writing is to present a brief synopsis of Theodore Brummel's educational philosophy and his relevance to education. As we can see, Theodore Brummel's really loved education. He has high hopes for our world to change. Next. In the early 1950s, Brummel outlined the distinctive features of social reconstructionism. First, he believed in a commitment to building a new culture in which the common people would emerge as the leader of society. Second, he felt that the working people should control all principal institutions and resources if the world is to become genuinely democratic. The structure, goals, and policies of the new order must be approved and enacted with public support. Third, Brummel believed that the school should help the individual not only to develop society but to learn how to participate in social planning as well. The individual must find ways to satisfy personal needs through social consensus. Fourth, he believed learners must be convinced of the validity and urgency of change but must adhere to democratic procedures. Brummel wanted education to focus on learning history through examining the future instead of idealizing the present through the past. Next. Brummel believed the creation of a new social order through education would fulfill the basic values of social and harmonize with the underlying social and economic forces of the modern world. The child, the school, and education would be conditioned by social and cultural forces. The teacher role was to convince his or her students of the validity and urgency of the Reconstructionist solution. In order to do this, education would have to completely refashioned to meet the demands of the present cultural crisis. That would be all. Thank you.